In a massive operation led by President Ibrahim Traoré, 47 trucks brimming with weapons and military ammunition were seized in Burkina Faso. The sheer volume and variety of the arsenal sparked a chilling question. Who were these weapons meant for, and who was orchestrating this shadowy scheme? The incident unfolded 3 nights ago, under the cover of darkness, in the Kanchari region near Burkina Faso's border with Togo. Border guards, on their routine patrol, spotted something unusual. A long convoy, snaking along the quiet border, where silence typically reigned at such an hour. The convoy's size and its midnight maneuvering ignited suspicion. Border Commander Captain Amadou Kone swiftly reported the anomaly to higher authorities. Intelligence suggested the convoy was transporting humanitarian aid, but the details didn't add up. Why would aid be moved in the dead of night? And why along desolate back roads instead of the usual routes? When President Traoré received the report, his gut told him this was no ordinary operation. Without hesitation, he contacted Special Forces Commander General Malik Diallo. "General, intercept the convoy," he ordered, his voice steady but firm. "Proceed with caution. This could be more than simple smuggling." The Special Forces sprang into action, moving like ghosts in the night. They set up an ambush along the convoy's path, while helicopters lifted off and drones began tracking the vehicles from above. The massive convoy of 47 trucks rolled forward, oblivious to the net closing in. At 4 in the morning, the operation erupted. Special Forces blocked the road, halting the convoy in its tracks. Drivers, caught off guard, scrambled to flee, but the tightening cordon left no escape. After a brief chase, every driver was apprehended. When the first truck's cargo was revealed, the sight stunned everyone. Beneath sacks labeled as humanitarian aid lay an arsenal of modern weaponry: automatic rifles, hand grenades, rocket launchers, and more. Each truck was a rolling armory. Captain Kone radioed President Traoré, his voice trembling with disbelief. "Mr. President, you won't believe this. There are enough weapons here to arm an entire army. This isn't smuggling. It's preparation for war." Traoré's response was calm but resolute. "Secure everything. Not a single bullet goes missing. And make the drivers talk. We need to know who's behind this." One driver, a nervous man named Samuel Touré, cracked under questioning. His words came in a shaky rush. "They told us it was agricultural equipment. We were to deliver it to a warehouse in Togo, where it would be loaded onto a ship." As interrogations deepened, the operation scale unraveled. Most drivers were unaware of their cargo's true nature, but the organizers were meticulous professionals. Each truck had followed a distinct route, departing at staggered times before converging at the border. By the second day, a detailed search of the trucks yielded chilling discoveries. Serial numbers on the weapons had been partially erased, but Burkina Faso's intelligence team, using advanced techniques, traced their origins. Some rifles hailed from Libya's civil war, others from conflicts in Yemen. A few were brand new, never fired. The estimated value of the seized arsenal? Over $100 million. President Traoré convened the National Security Council. The inventory was staggering. 15,000 automatic rifles, 5,000 assault rifles, 3 million rounds of ammunition, 50,000 grenades, 1,500 rocket launchers, 200 anti-aircraft missiles, and 20 tons of explosives. Defense Minister General Omar Sy was floored. "This could topple a small nation," he said, his voice heavy. "This was meant for a coup or a civil war." Interior Minister Aissata Diarra's face was grim. "Mr. President, if these weapons had reached their destination, our country would be drenched in blood. Terrorist groups or opposition factions could have waged war for years." Traoré rose, his presence commanding the room. "This is no accident. Someone seeks to destabilize Burkina Faso, as they did in Libya, Syria, and Yemen. But we are vigilant. We've disrupted their plans." Intelligence Chief Commandant Lassina Zongo spoke next. "Mr. President, one driver has revealed more. The weapons were headed for secret warehouses in Ouagadougou, where they would be distributed. Traoré's decision was swift and unyielding. Launch a large-scale operation in the capital immediately. Raid every suspicious warehouse. Find out who's waiting for these weapons and who's funding them. At dawn, simultaneous raids swept across 23 locations in Ouagadougou. 17 warehouses yielded more weapons, the stockpiles so vast they defied comprehension. Among those arrested were shocking figures: former ministers, retired generals, wealthy tycoons, and even foreign diplomats, all united by their opposition to Traoré's administration. On the fourth day, a bombshell dropped. One of the detained businessmen, Michel Coffey, turned informant. His confession shook the room. "This was planned months ago," he stammered. "Foreign powers promised us support. We were to overthrow Traoré and install a pro-Western government." The weapons were just the beginning. Traoré leaned forward, his eyes piercing. Which foreign powers? Coffey hesitated, then broke. Meetings were held in Accra. Some came from Abidjan. Instructions flowed from Paris, with approval from Washington. The room fell silent, the weight of his words sinking in. Traoré pressed on. "Continue." Coffey's voice wavered. The plan, codenamed Operation New Dawn, was to spark terrorist attacks, sow panic, and incite an opposition uprising. Army insiders would then stage a coup. The revelations were staggering. The operation's budget was $200 million, with the weapons as its first phase. Coffey named Western embassy officials, multinational corporate agents, and even international aid workers as conspirators. Traoré decided the world needed to know. He scheduled a historic press conference to be broadcast live on national television. Behind Traoré, a display of seized weapons loomed. A chilling backdrop of rifles, grenades, and launchers. His voice rang out, steady and fierce. "Dear Burkinabe brothers and people of the world, 3 days ago, we thwarted the largest arms smuggling operation in our history. But this was no mere smuggling. It was a conspiracy to destabilize Burkina Faso, to turn our people against one another, and to impose a puppet regime." He held up documents, their edges catching the light. "Here is the evidence. 47 trucks of weapons, valued at $100 million. Their goal? To plunge our nation into chaos." His tone sharpened. "Where did these weapons come from? I cannot reveal all yet, but I will say this. Imperialist powers still seek to control Africa. They will not succeed. We are awake." Journalists erupted with questions. A CNN reporter pressed, "Which countries are behind this?" Traoré's eyes narrowed. "The investigation continues, but some weapons were manufactured in NATO nations." A BBC correspondent followed. "Who leads this conspiracy?" 17 individuals are in custody," Traoré replied. "Former ministers, generals, and others. Informants are speaking. The truth will soon emerge." An Al Jazeera journalist asked, "How will this impact regional security?" "This is an attack not just on Burkina Faso, but on all of Africa," Traoré declared. "Similar plots target Mali, Niger, and Guinea. We must unite." A Russian reporter inquired about security measures. "Absolutely," Traoré answered. "Our army is on high alert, our borders fortified, and our people stand with us." The conference's most haunting moment came when Michel Coffey's recorded confession played. His tear-streaked face filled the screen. "They deceived us," he sobbed. "They promised democracy, but we would have torn our country apart. Traoré is right. We became traitors. I beg my people's forgiveness." Silence gripped the room. Traoré resumed, his voice like steel. "This is their true face. They sold their nation for money. But they failed, and they will always fail." Outside, thousands gathered, chanting, "Long live Traoré! Down with imperialism!" Women sang the national anthem, elders prayed, and youth lit torches in solidarity. Traoré stepped out to address them. "Dear people, your vigilance saved our nation. Together, we are unbreakable." The echoes of President Ibrahim Traoré's press conference still reverberated across Burkina Faso, igniting a fire of unity among the people. Outside the capital, Ouagadougou, the The streets pulsed with energy. Thousands had gathered, their voices rising in a chorus of defiance, chanting, Traoré, Traoré. Young men waved the national flag, their faces alight with pride. Women clasped hands, singing songs of resistance that echoed through the night. Elders, their eyes glistening with tears, murmured prayers for their leader and their land. The nation had been shaken, but it stood taller than ever, rallied by the revelation of a sinister plot to tear it apart. Inside the presidential palace, the atmosphere was tense but resolute. Traoré sat with his closest advisors, poring over the latest reports from the ongoing investigation. The confessions of Michel Coffey, the businessman turned informant, had opened a Pandora's box. His words pointed to a sprawling network, not just within Burkina Faso, but stretching across borders, implicating foreign powers and their proxies. The codename Operation New Dawn haunted the room, a chilling reminder of how close the nation had come to chaos. Intelligence Chief Commandant Lassina Zongo presented new findings, his voice steady but laced with urgency. Mr. President, we've uncovered documents from the raided warehouses. The weapons were only the first shipment. More were planned, with routes mapped through Togo, Benin, and even Ghana. The goal was to flood the Sahel with arms, destabilizing not just us, but the entire region. Traoré's jaw tightened. And the financiers, he asked, his tone sharp. Zongo hesitated, then laid out a stack of decrypted messages. We've traced funds to shell companies in Europe and the Gulf. Some accounts link to private security firms, others to multinational corporations. But the trail grows murkier the higher we go. We need more time. Defense Minister General Omar Sy leaned forward, his hands clasped tightly. This is a war machine, Mr. President. These weapons weren't just for a coup. They were meant to fracture our region, to keep us weak and dependent. Whoever's behind this has deep pockets and deeper ambitions. Interior Minister Aissata Diarra added, the arrested conspirators are talking, but they're terrified. They claim their foreign contacts promise protection, even immunity. We've identified meeting points in Accra and Abidjan, but the masterminds remain in the shadows. Traoré stood, pacing the room, his mind racing. Then we dig deeper. No one hides from Burkina Faso's justice. Expand the raids. Tap every source. And alert our allies, Mali, Niger, Guinea. This threat is theirs too. By dawn, the capital buzzed with renewed action. Special forces conducted fresh raids, targeting safe houses and hidden offices linked to the conspiracy. In one raid, they uncovered a cache of encrypted laptops and burner phones, their data revealing communications with operatives in multiple countries. The scale was staggering, a network designed to orchestrate chaos across West Africa. Among the arrested were two more high-profile figures, a former ambassador, Fatoumata Coulibaly, and a retired colonel, Issouf Ouagadougou, both vocal critics of Traoré's government. The interrogations painted a grim picture. Coulibaly, her composure crumbling, admitted to attending secret meetings abroad. They told us Burkina Faso needed saving. She whispered, her voice breaking. They promised funds, weapons, and international support. We thought we were building a better future. Colonel Ouagadougou was less repentant, his eyes defiant. You can't stop progress, Traoré, he spat. The world wants a Burkina Faso that serves its interests, not yours. Traoré, overseeing the interrogations via secure video, remained unmoved. The only progress we serve is that of our people, he said coldly. You sold them out. As the fifth day dawned, the investigation took a dramatic turn. A captured operative, a foreign national named Pierre Dubois, revealed a bombshell under intense questioning. The plan wasn't just about Burkina Faso, he confessed, sweat beading on his brow. It targeted the Sahel's strongest leaders. You, Mali's leadership, Niger's. The goal was to install compliant regimes, ones that would open their markets and resources to foreign control. Traoré's eyes narrowed. Who gave the orders? Dubois hesitated, then named a shadowy consortium of private firms and intelligence operatives with ties to Western capitals. They called it a realignment of Africa, he said. The weapons were to arm proxies, militias, rebels, even terrorist groups, to create chaos and justify intervention. The revelation sent shockwaves through the government. Traoré called an emergency meeting with regional allies. Leaders from Mali, Niger, and Guinea joined via secure video link, their faces grim as they absorbed the scope of the threat. Mali's leader, Colonel Bakary Keita, spoke first. Brother Traoré, you've uncovered a viper's nest. We're tightening our borders and launching our own investigations. This is a war against Africa's sovereignty. Niger's leader, General Salifou Tiani, nodded. We must share intelligence. This network has roots in every Sahel nation. If we don't act together, they'll pick us off one by one. Guinea's leader, Commander Moussa Camara, added, Traoré's courage has lit a fire. Africa must stand as one. No more foreign puppets. Traoré's voice was resolute. This is our moment. We will expose this conspiracy, dismantle its networks, and show the world that Africa answers to its people, not its exploiters. Back in Ouagadougou, the people's support grew fiercer. Demonstrations swelled, with citizens marching through the streets, holding banners that read, Africa for Africans, and Traoré, our shield. Youth organized vigils, lighting candles to symbolize their nation's awakening. Women's groups composed songs praising Traoré's defiance, their voices carrying across villages and towns. Even children joined, drawing murals of unity and strength on city walls. On the sixth day, Traoré announced a bold move. A public exhibition of the seized weapons in Independence Square. Tens of thousands gathered, their gasps audible as they saw the mountains of rifles, grenades, and missiles. An elderly man, his voice trembling, clutched his grandson's hand. These were meant for our children's blood, he said, tears streaming down his face. A young woman, her fists clenched, shouted, Without Traoré, we'd be at war by now. Traoré took the stage, his presence commanding silence. This is what they planned for us, he said, gesturing to the weapons. A future of death and division. But we chose life. We chose unity. And we won. The crowd roared, their cheers shaking the square. Traoré raised his hand, his voice rising. With the metal from these weapons, we will build schools. We will open clinics. We will dig irrigation canals to feed our lands. These tools of death will become tools of life. As he spoke, workers wheeled a massive cauldron onto the stage. In a symbolic act, the first batch of weapons was melted, the molten metal poured into a mold shaped like a school bell. Traoré held it aloft. Every morning, when our children hear this bell, they will hear the sound of peace. The crowd erupted, tears mixing with cheers. International observers, watching from the sidelines, were stunned. A United Nations representative whispered, This is unprecedented. They're turning weapons into hope. An African Union envoy added, Traoré hasn't just saved Burkina Faso. He's rewriting Africa's story. Meanwhile, the investigation deepened. Data from the seized laptops revealed a chilling detail. The conspiracy aimed to destabilize not just Burkina Faso, but the entire Sahel, with tailored plans for each nation. In Burkina Faso, Traoré was the primary target. In Mali, Colonel Keita. In Niger, General Tiani. The financiers had allocated a staggering $1 billion to fund coups, rebellions, and proxy wars across the region. Some funds traced to Gulf states, others to European banks, but the ultimate source remained elusive. Traoré held a second press conference, his tone fiercer than before. The masks are off, he declared, holding up new documents. They plan to recolonize Africa, to install puppet leaders who would sell our resources and our future. But they forgot one thing. We are the heirs of our ancestors' resilience. We will not bow. The documents revealed a pre-drafted list of ministers for the post-coup government, complete with assigned roles and planned policies. Traoré's voice trembled with controlled anger. They divided our ministries before they even try to topple us. But Burkina Faso belongs to its people. Among the newly arrested were foreign nationals. 3 French, 2 British, 1 American, and 2 others with diplomatic passports but no diplomatic roles. Their interrogations sparked an international firestorm. Their home countries demanded their release, but Traoré was unyielding. Diplomatic status does not grant a license to conspire, he said. They will face our justice. As the 7th day approached, Burkina Faso stood at a crossroads. The nation was united, its people galvanized, but the battle was far from over. The conspiracy's roots ran deep, and its architects remained at large. Traoré knew the fight would demand every ounce of his resolve and the unwavering support of his people. The dawn of the 7th day broke over Burkina Faso, casting a golden glow on a nation transformed by resolve. President Ibrahim Traoré stood before a sea of people in Ouagadougou's Independence Square, their faces a mosaic of hope and defiance. The air thrummed with anticipation, the crowd's chants of Traoré, Traoré, rising like a heartbeat. The seized weapons, once symbols of destruction, now lay in heaps, their fate sealed. Some would be melted for schools and clinics, others repurposed for the nation's defense. But the war was not over. The conspiracy's architects still lurked, and Traoré knew the fight for Burkina Faso's soul and Africa's future was just beginning. Inside the palace, the atmosphere crackled with urgency. The investigation had unearthed a web of deceit so vast it threatened the entire Sahel. Decrypted files from seized laptops revealed a chilling blueprint. Not only Burkina Faso, but Mali, Niger, and Guinea were targeted for synchronized coups. The goal was to install pliant leaders who would open Africa's resources to foreign exploitation. The budget, a staggering $1 billion, flowed through shell companies, private militias, and corrupt officials. Some trails led to Gulf monarchies, others to European financial hubs, but the puppet masters remained elusive. Traoré met with his inner circle, his eyes burning with determination. Intelligence Chief Lassina Zongo laid out the latest findings. Mr. President, we've intercepted communications linking the plot to a consortium of Western intelligence operatives and corporate interests. They use code names, but one name keeps surfacing: the Syndicate. It's a shadow group coordinating through encrypted channels. Defense Minister Omar Sy slammed his fist on the table. This isn't just about weapons. It's about control, our minds, our oil, our future. They want to keep Africa on its knees. Interior Minister Aissata Diarra nodded, her voice steady. The arrested conspirators are naming names, but they're low-level pawns. The real players are abroad, shielded by diplomatic immunity or corporate fronts. We need international cooperation to expose them. Traoré's gaze was unyielding. Then we take this to the world stage. Share our evidence with the African Union, the United Nations, and our allies. Let the world see the truth. And keep digging. No one escapes justice. The courtroom in Ouagadougou buzzed as the first trials began. The defendants, former ministers, generals, and foreign operatives, faced charges of treason, arms smuggling, and conspiring against the state. The evidence was overwhelming. Audio recordings, financial transactions, and confessions piled high. Michel Coffey, the informant, took the stand, his voice trembling. I was blinded by promises of power, he said, tears streaming. They told us we'd bring prosperity, but it was a lie. We were pawns in their game. Fatoumata Coulibaly, the former ambassador, broke down, begging for mercy. I thought I was serving Burkina Faso's future, she sobbed. I didn't know the cost. Colonel Issouf Ouagadougou, however, remained defiant, sneering at the judge. You can't stop the tide, he said. The world will reshape this country, with or without Traoré. The trials captivated the nation, broadcast live on television. Families gathered around screens, their anger mixed with pride as justice unfolded. Outside the courthouse, crowds chanted, "No more puppets," and "Africa rises." The people's faith in Traoré grew stronger, their unity a shield against external threats. On the 8th day, international pressure mounted. Western nations, stung by the arrests of their citizens, threatened sanctions. Traoré held firm, addressing the nation in a televised speech. "History will judge those who threaten us," he declared, his voice like thunder. "We are not a colony. We are Burkina Faso, and we will protect our sovereignty." Support poured in from unexpected allies. Russia's envoy praised Traoré's resolve, stating, "Every nation has the right to defend itself. Burkina Faso's fight is just." China offered security equipment, declaring, "We stand with Africa against terrorism and imperialism." Turkey, Iran, and even Venezuela sent messages of solidarity, condemning the conspiracy as a crime against humanity. Across Africa, leaders echoed Traoré's call. Mali's Colonel Bakary Keita announced, "We are purging our own ranks. No traitor will hide." Niger's General Salifou Tiani shared intelligence, uncovering similar arms caches in his country. Guinea's commander Moussa Camara called for a regional summit. "Africa must forge its own path," he said. "Traoré has shown us the way." On the 9th day, Traoré made a historic move. He invited African Union observers to witness the melting of the seized weapons. In Independence Square, thousands watched as rifles and grenades were reduced to molten metal, poured into molds for school bells, hospital beds, and irrigation tools. A young girl, no older than 10, rang the first bell, its clear chime echoing across the square. "This is our future," Traoré said, his voice soft but resolute. "Not war, but peace. Not division, but unity." The African Union's representative bodies moved, declared, "This is a turning point. Burkina Faso has shown Africa how to transform pain into progress." The United Nations, initially cautious, issued a statement condemning arms smuggling and praising Burkina Faso's transparency. By the 10th day, the investigation had cracked open the syndicate's operations. Interpol, acting on Burkina Faso's evidence, issued international arrest warrants for arms dealers and financiers. Assets were frozen, and raids in Europe and the Gulf netted key operatives. The weapons route was fully mapped, smuggled from Eastern Europe through Libya, with bribes greasing every step. It was a global crime network, now unraveling under Traoré's relentless pursuit. The 15th day was declared National Awakening Day, a celebration of Burkina Faso's victory over the conspiracy. Schools taught children about the plot, ensuring future generations would remain vigilant. Traoré's final speech was a masterpiece, delivered to a roaring crowd. "This victory belongs to all of Africa," he said, his voice carrying across the continent. "We have shown that we can stand tall, ensure our own security, and shape our own destiny. No weapons, no money, no lies can defeat us when we are united." The square erupted, young and old embracing, their tears and laughter mingling. Women sang, their voices soaring. Elders raised their hands in blessing. Youth danced, their torches lighting the night. Burkina Faso had not only survived, it had become a beacon. As the days passed, the melted weapons funded 100 schools, 50 clinics, and 1,000 kilometers of irrigation canals. The army, bolstered by repurposed arms, grew stronger, a guardian of the nation's sovereignty. Across the Sahel, leaders adopted Traoré's model, tightening borders and sharing intelligence. The African Union launched a continent-wide arms embargo, declaring, "Africa is not a weapons depot. It is a depot of hope." Traoré's legacy was cemented not in the seizure of 47 trucks, but in the awakening of 47 million hearts. From Mali to Niger, Guinea to Chad, Africa stirred, its leaders and people united against imperialism. The continent would no longer be a pawn in global games. It would rise, not with bullets, but with brotherhood, not with bombs, but with knowledge, not with war, but with love. And so, a new era dawned. Burkina Faso, under Traoré's unwavering leadership, had sparked a revolution, not of violence, but of resilience. Africa's time had come, and its people, hand in hand, marched toward a future of their own making, from darkness to light, from chains to freedom.